All right, so we are here now on episode 2 of the Primetime Podcast, and this is an episode that's definitely going to be near and dear to the heart. I've got Long Island's own Mark Zim on the phone.
Of course, you always have to drag me out for these types of things in my busy schedule.
Oh, well, yeah, and I know, we're not doing a video chat here because I'm sure you're involved in some sort of very important business arrangement and videos aren't convenient, but it's always good to have you on the phone.
Well, it's also, I'm in a very important office here. I'm doing very important work, and, the walls aren't exactly soundproof. We haven't installed that yet, so people don't understand. They sometimes don't know this second life that I had. I mean, I am paid, especially on Long Island. I go out, people sign, I ask for my autograph any restaurant I go to, but I want to be just one of the guys here with my coworkers. And they're listening to these stories. I can even tell some of them have their ears against the wall, and they're wondering, look how much stuff this guy has done. He's like sitting over in the next office over. It's a well put together individual, but he has this history that nobody knows about, and they're listening in on this podcast, and they're wondering, like, what kind of whack job did we hire here? But it's a very important whack job.
Right. So, speaking of history, all right, so these were two very important shows that we're going to discuss here. We're going to discuss, so it was BBWF BattleMania in 2006, my 30th birthday. And then we're going to touch base moving forward 10 whole years from when the BBWF returned for one night only at my 40th birthday. So let's start from the beginning here. So we've been running hot and heavy. We were having a great time doing shows. We were picking up steam. We were really gaining momentum for really from where we were coming from and what we were doing. And now we're at BattleMania. The stage is set. We were in the IWF Center that was originally in Woodland Park. It was a great facility. It was a great time to be involved with what we were doing. So for you, this is now This
is my first show.
This is your first show.
We're talking about 2006. Now, if you were, and I guess before we get into the 06 show, because that's when I came onto the scene, we had a conversation. I was brought on board by, it was a hot commodity, right?
Oh, yeah. The HC.
He brought me on board. That's how I got involved in this cast of characters. They needed a referee. I became one. But before we start about that, did you have a show on your 20th birthday in '96?
Nothing that would be available for YouTube or anything like that. No, actually, believe it or not.
So there must have been something.
Yeah. In 1996, that's the year I started training. That's the year I went to ECPW, and it was the day after WrestleMania, because back then, while everyone was HBK fans, and that was the year he won the title, I was a Bret Hart guy. I've always been a Bret Hart guy, and right after that day, he lost, I went and started getting training. That was the match that made me want to become a wrestler. So when I was 20,
Talk about getting screwed twice a year and a half before he actually got screwed. Nobody said there was allowed to be overtime in an Iron Man match. He just left with the title. So I
was so pissed. I was pissed. I was so pissed. I was not a Shawn Michaels guy.
I understand what you're saying. Now, neither was I. To me, and again, I'm going to have to get paid now to have a WWF pass. I refuse to acknowledge it with the need, and I'm shorting their stock. So,
there you go.
But it's one of those things where that guy always, no matter what, he's like a do-gooder now, and he's found God or whatever he has. He's everywhere he's been, whenever he's unhappy about something, he takes the ball and he goes home. It's so silly. But that's interesting, because I always wondered if the years that end in 6, it was just banner times for the BBWF, because I always think about what's going to happen in 2026. No. I mean,
I got 5 years to prepare.
Like every 10 years, especially on your 50th birthday.
Right.
Who the heck knows?
That's true. I got 5 years to prepare for that, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, getting back to that. Yeah, right. We're right in the middle of year 1, 5 years in between that. But, that was the first show I was involved in. So, I go into that locker room, and it's intimidating enough for the new guy. But not only that, and I touched upon this on the other one, he had the Dragon returning from Los Angeles,
Right.
And, you know, so people were all hyped about that. So I kind of slipped into the background, and I never really had any formal training to be a referee. So that was definitely, you know, I was thrown to the wolves for that show, but I immediately saw, you know, how much passion, especially in the crowd and in the locker room, that people had for this organization. And, you know, I was craving more, and I wanted to know more about this because I've been to, I'm a huge wrestling fan when I was younger, not anymore. I hate the product that they put out on television now. But, you know, I used to go attend, especially on Long Island, thousands, you know, maybe not thousands, you know, hundreds of independent shows at Deer Park on Long Island, and I never really got the passion that I did out of all those 100 shows than that first time that I walked into the BBWF building for that 2006 show. So they immediately pulled me in and intrigued me on what type of familial atmosphere it was.
You know what? Like, there was a big thing that we said about the BBWF at the time, and it was a matter of, like, you know, it was a fun environment. It was a passion, and you know what? Like, when you have that stuff going for you, it's not considered work. It's not considered doing a job. It's not like when you love what you do, it's not work. You know, it's your passion. And I really loved what we were doing. I would do videos every night. I would create storylines. I would do the gear for the guy. I loved every angle of it. We were having a lot of fun and putting on a good show, you know, in along with it. And there was a lot of firsts on that show. I mean, it was the first time anyone had seen the Dragon come back, my brother. Nobody knew he was coming back, except for a few close people on the inside. And he got, Joey always gets a great response. You know, I mean, he's good with people. Everybody, he's a likable guy. And it was good to have him back there. And it was I believe I was the one that kicked off the show out there, and then the Dragon was introduced. Shortly after that,
I remember the gasp of the crowd. It was a true surprise.
Yeah, that wasn't just from our grandparents that were sitting there. It was a huge gasp with the crowd. But I had come out first, actually, and I was in the ring, and then his music hit, and then he came out. But prior to the Dragon returning, I was attacked by the Demon in the aisle. He had cheap shotted me and attacked me in the ring, and then I believe you as an official came out and pulled him off along with the Hot Commodity and a couple other wrestlers, and they threw him back to the locker room. And because I know that night I would later on square off against the Demon in I think it was like a Falls Count Anywhere match or something like that, or it was like a no holds barred street fight or something. I believe it was. And when the Dragon came back and said hellos and everything else, and he was back in the BBWF and all that stuff. And then we went right into the first match of the evening, which was
talk about getting thrown to the wolves on just a personal note. I mean, that was my first assignment, to break up the main event. I mean, you know, the setup of the big match later.
Sure.
That was the first thing. I never even got any dark match or anything. But what did that segue into? What was the first?
We segued into the Green Scorpion versus Ariok. Now, I mean, I thought it was. I mean, look, I think Ariok's a great performer. He puts on a show out there, like diving over the top rope, and he's very aerial, and aerial Ariok. That's, I guess, how we can look at it. But he was going against the Green Scorpion, though. He's like, is very unpredictable. You don't know what you're gonna get.
I mean, I did absolutely.
And he lost his pants. You know, like, that's the thing. He lost his pants twice. He couldn't keep his pants on twice in that match. And Scorpions are very unorthodox, but that's basically what you could expect from them. So after that match was over,
thankfully, even though how many times he did lose his pants, thankfully, because it still is a family atmosphere, his little Scorpion never came out, so
right?
Nobody saw it.
And he had and now you came in clutch during that event, because you had to come in and help him get his pants back on, I think, at one point in time, and get him reattached. So that was a huge help.
Again, it's unbelievable. Those are I didn't even get any type of formal training or any type of dark match where it's simple. My first two assignments was breaking up the main event of the show before it even came on, before the opening match, and helping a scorpion keep his pants on.
Right.
So, I mean, it was nuts.
So, I mean, what was fun about the next segment is that I know it started out with the hot commodity in the ring, and he was welcoming the crowd and all this other stuff, and insert Bday, who at the time wanted a piece of the hot commodity, and it wasn't going to get it. I forget how it started, but I guess somehow at that point in time, the Demon showed up, I had showed up, and that kind of solidified our match for the evening. And then it somehow was left with just Bday and then the hot commodity in the ring, and HC had delivered a low blow to Bday, and while he was on the ground, brought out his opponent for the evening, which was the Franchise. Now, this was interesting. The Franchise was set up to go after the heavyweight championship. The Marvelous One, who was really chasing after the heavyweight championship, was injured. So the Franchise had to face Bday before he got to the championship match.
You know what? Talk about an interesting figure in the Franchise. We didn't even mention it. I mean, that was a feud that I had with him. I was calling him French fries at one point, but there's another story. There's another podcast right there.
Without a doubt.
I wonder if he'd ever come on. You think he'd come on?
I think he. I mean, I would love to talk to him, and that's I would definitely do that. He was always a hell of a worker in the ring, man. I mean, I loved working with him. I worked against him. Red Scorpions worked against him, and both of us enjoyed working with him. So he was going to take on Bday, and then the Mac, who was the champion at the time, was going to take on... Wait, no. Let me back this up. Yeah, you're right. The Mac was the new champion at the time. He was crowned the champion, I think, because... No, he defeated the Demon on an untelevised event. And he was the champion, and he was going to take on the Red Scorpion. And then this way, they both had one match to work, and then the winners would face off. So the Mac ended up facing the Franchise for the title later on in the evening, and the Franchise actually won. That was the night he won the heavyweight championship. And then what would happen is the Marvelous One would come in and attack him afterwards after that match. So that was a whole lot going on in that event in the heavyweight title scene. There was also a battle royal that evening that everybody really enjoyed. And I would love to remember the winner of that match, and I think that's the only one that escapes me, really, that match. But I really can't.
Well, luckily we still have the DVDs player. We still have the DVD player.
That's true. I do have the DVDs. I'll have to research that one. But the right before the Mac took on the Franchise in the main event, I battled the Demon. And like I said, it was my 30th birthday, so it was cool to have all friends and family there, watching and everything else. And the thing about working with the Demon is, personally and professionally, I can't stand this guy. Like, he is a thorn in everybody's side. He drives me nuts. If he's not, I don't know, if he's not pining for a spot that's somewhere higher than his own, he's bitching about something.
So suffice to say, this guy will never be on this podcast.
No, and that's by his own accord. I mean, he'll act as if all these people would hear it, and he'd be somehow, embarrassed or something like that. Meanwhile, I mean, no, I don't think anyone would even know him by name. But whatever. I don't think that he would ever come on this show. No, and honestly, I would never expect him to. But I ended up defeating him in a street fight, which was a lot of fun for me, because like I said, I enjoy the pleasure I get out of that, and just putting that dude through some agony and suffering. So, but the whole theme of BattleMania that night, I mean, it was like I said, you guys did an awesome job. I know we went out afterwards for my birthday and everything else, but the camaraderie that all of us had and everything, and how we put it all together, and we gave everyone a good time, and I think that's what's lacking a lot of times too. I mean, before the pandemic, is that, the crowd just wants to be involved in a show. That's really what it is. And we got them involved. We went over the top. We really made them part of the show. And I think that carried on through our return with the BBWF. When we came back, we still brought them in on the show. Like, I remember, like, Bday. He would say some things to the crowd that just, even on at BattleMania, he would say, I remember one night he got, actually no, it was BattleMania when he got on the mic, and he didn't say it directly to any of the women. He just said it in general, and whoever picked up on it was gonna say something. Do you remember when he used the line, look at this lady over here wants to kiss me, but sorry, I don't use public toilets? I mean,
he was really the king of one-liners. Also, he could have been hosting. That's not saying much nowadays, but he could host any late night comedy show or late night talk show as he pleases. I mean, the wit on him is unbelievable. He's gone on with a career in podcasting of himself. He still has a couple of hit shows. I mean,
he's doing one now. And shout out to those guys. The Perfect Playlist podcast. I mean, they're good friends of the show. And D-Pro is his co-host, and Joe D-Pro was actually our announcer, and he was amazing when he did announcing for us. I always enjoyed him being our announcer, and but Bday, I'm going to give him...
There's chemistry. There's definitely chemistry between those two. They had a parenting podcast that was a huge hit as well. Yeah.
Like, the funny thing is,
and he's funny, and just speaking of Bday, he has a feud with James Blunt right now on social media. Yeah, that could put some asses in the seats if he had the main event somewhere.
I cannot wait to do an episode with him, because I truly think, from what he did with the BBWF to what he does alone, like I think that episode is going to be huge. You and I are definitely going to have to do that one together and interview him, because there's a lot to take in with Bday. I mean, from a personal, professional, and in-ring standpoint with Bday, there's a lot to take in. Like, I remember when I
he was one of the reasons why people, filled that arena.
Oh, God.
Every time we went somewhere.
Well, I remember the quick comment about it without going. I'll give him his whole other episode. But I remember when we were going through my title match with him, and he was the challenger. He knew it. He goes, "Let's face it, we're at a point now where people have just been waiting to see me, get my ass handed to me, and this is the night." Like that's how we booked it, because, that's what everybody wanted. Everybody was so after him. It was great, and it made for such awesome footage. Really good videos. You and him were like right up there with each other with the videos. It was nuts. But
yeah, no, he was great. I mean, and even I have to put some humility aside. I mean, I always thought that I was the best, but with him, and especially his one-liner, I mean, that was to me it was second to none. I mean, there are very few people with that, kind of like dry wit to them. Bobby Heenan, of course, was one. Talk about a guy. I thought Bobby Heenan could be Johnny Carson.
Right.
I mean, if you would have taken Johnny Carson and made him into a wrestling manager and announcer, and taken Bobby Heenan and making him into the late night comedy show on NBC, talk show, I think Bobby Heenan would have done a better job. But
at the end of the day, these are the kind of stories that made the BBWF what it was. Like, this is the camaraderie that we all had, the passion, the fun, the good times. It has way more memories. And, now, after that event, we only did about 3 more events, I think, after that. And then it kind of, we went underground. We just said there was a lot going on.
Wait, that's not true. Wait a second.
Yeah.
There was a good 06 to 09. I'm talking 3 years now. Maybe, was it 08? No, I'm pretty sure there was a show in February of 09 at the ECPW facility, where later on it became famous for the YouTube weekly tapings.
No, so 2006 we did BattleMania, and then we did No Exceptions in September at the Beacon Graphics Arena.
November. It was postponed. It was supposed to be September 9th, I remember.
Yep.
Promo. And it got postponed to November 18th or something.
That's right. Yeah. So after that, we went to 2007. We did, let's see. So that night, it was a triple threat match. I'm trying to from there, we went to BattleMania. We went on to BattleMania in the warehouse in Bridgewater. That was next.
That's the debut. Yeah, there was a couple of interesting things there. I think a guy by the name of Alex Londo.
Alex Londano?
Was that? Yeah. I'll never forget. He makes an entrance. He brings his whole family. He gets eliminated in the Battle Royal. And he doesn't even shower in his outfit. He just takes his family, summons them over, and they take the minivan out, and we've never heard from him again. It's been, like 13 years now.
And I know his name was a one. I can't remember the guy's work name. Like, it was a one word. It was a one-word name. But I remember he fought Wrath. So I can't put it together, and I know it's going to drive me insane until I remember. We'll finish recording the podcast, and I'll be like, you know what? That's it. But yeah,
well, we're just going to have to look at the DVD.
Yeah,
we're going to have to do watch-alongs.
We should.
We're going to have to just do watch-alongs.
We should.
We'll start the DVD at a specific time. We'll let the fans, who have the DVDs, and we've sold tons of copies. So there's probably like hundreds of thousands of copies out there.
Yeah.
We'll pause it at a certain point. We're at 15 seconds. And then we're just going to do running commentary on it. That's it. Book it. You're coming to Long Island now.
I'm with it, man. I am with it. So at the end, then we did in 2008. The last two events after the warehouse show was Over the Edge, which is the main event. Was myself against Bday. You were in a tag match with the Hustler against the Scorpions. And
Delicious and Malicious.
Yes,
yeah.
And then the last event we did, which you know what, you're right, it might have trickled into 2009. It
trickled into 2009.
It was myself and the Dragon.
What you just said 3 minutes ago.
You're right.
By saying that it fizzled out. There was a good 2.5 year run.
Yeah.
It was probably the most consistent run that it had before going into hiatus, and I can't even tell you. I was cleaning out my old AOL.
Oh God!
I still have one of those. I was cleaning out my old AOL folder the other day. I remember you were still in like 2010 and 2011. You were still promoting a comeback,
right?
Right. And it finally happened. Perfect segue. The comeback finally happens a decade later from that 2006 show that we just finished discussing at the iconic One Night Only show, which kind of overwhelmed me a bit, and I'll tell you why. Going into it, and maybe it was just silly thinking on my part, I was hoping to capture more of the family atmosphere that we had 10 years prior, but I understood that a lot of those guys got up there in age, had careers, had families, so you had to bring in people from other parts of the independent spectrum, and it kind of lost a familial feel for me, except until the beginning. There was that heartwarming moment that I always harp on because I wasn't invited to be in that picture. The four guys. So that kind of helped segue into, I guess, the next generation of BBWF, but I was kind of sad during that show because it kind of felt like we went away a bit from that, but understandably so, because there wouldn't have been a show if we had to rely on the same cast of characters from a decade earlier.
Right. Now, so you look at it like this. So how this was conceived? I mean, let's face it, all the times that we saw each other outside of this, I mean, between... I know what your busy schedule, but out of all the times that we've all gotten together and hung out post BBWF era 2009, the closeout, like we always talk. One more show, one more. We can do another event. Like, we always talked about it. But when 2016 came around, to pull back the curtain a little bit, Juan Francisco de Coronado, that was my opponent. That was, I hadn't
talk about another controversial character.
Right. He worked for me.
I mean, he ran into his own problems. Yeah.
I mean, he worked for me. Pulling back the curtain here, he worked for me, and he was doing shows. Now, I had been involved with EPWE, which was an association, a promotion out in Pennsylvania. When I moved to Pennsylvania, I was doing EPWE shows, and I didn't really wrestle. I was the general manager over there, and I loved it. I threw on the suit. I ran the show. I got into the controversial situations. I mean, hey, Red Scorpion even showed up a couple of times because he goes where I go. So it was a great time. And then the discussion came out about me doing another show with my stuff and doing the match with Juan Francisco de Coronado. Well, and mind you, okay, all the guys that we work with were no longer interested in wrestling. They wanted to be a part of it, but no one was going to wrestle. Understandable. So now I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to book this and I'm looking at the costs and stuff, I've got to get a good enough show here to get, some tickets going. And I reached out to guys that I also knew from training. I mean, Prince Akhenaten. I knew Prince for a long time, and I knew that and I always followed him and stayed in touch with him and everything else, and I was friends with him, so I knew that if I was bringing this back, I always wanted him to be a part of what we did originally, but it just never worked out. And he's a great character, but to do it now with him was going to be awesome. So I got him involved. He's in. Had a couple other workers that wanted to be involved. I brought in some EPWE guys, and then it was actually Robbie who messaged me and said, I'm doing, I'm going to be in the area doing an event or something like that. Are you interested in booking me for the event? And he and I talked briefly, and I booked him, and I got it done. And I
that was before you became very, very good, if not best friends with him.
I love to hate the guy. I do. I love to hate Rob. Robbie taught me so much, and I don't even want to. Robbie doesn't have the patience to sit and listen to a 35-minute podcast or whatever. So I'm going to say it because he probably will never hear it. Robbie taught me a hell of a lot, and I know I owe a lot of what I learned to Robbie. But at the time, I really didn't have that conversation. He came in, shook my hand, we BS'd for a couple minutes. We both knew each other from like Kevin Knight's school. He had been an Impact and everything else, and he was a great addition to the show. Robbie loves those atmospheres,
about a great all-around good guy in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you already mentioned too in the span of 10 minutes, Prince Akhenaten and then Robbie.
Right.
Those are two of the all-time great-hearted guys in this industry, if not in the forget the industry, as just human beings.
Right, and it's funny because I had always now I booked the match with myself against Juan Francisco de Coronado, and it was what I needed. I thought it'd be a great match. I knew he'd be hated right off the bat and everything else. And at the same side, it was funny because building up to One Night Only, I was I worked with SPF as well, South Philly's finest. The Gent Jimmy Conway, the Lion Luca Brasi, they're a very formidable tag team with EPWE, and I wanted to bring them in, but Jimmy and I always had this, where, we wanted to go at it in the ring. We wanted to always see what we could do together and stuff like that. But I was already slated to face Coronado, so I gave them the Scorpions, which I think Jimmy absolutely hated the idea. He couldn't stand the Scorpions. The Scorpions drove him nuts, and rightfully so. But it made for a great match. It really did. It was entertaining. The fans loved it. And in the end, hey, SPF, they cheated. They got the victory over the Scorpions. But they were a great addition as far as a tag team to the shows. They're the guys you love to hate. They did a great job. And then we had you and David Adams, who was, let's face it, he was the voice of primetime. Came back, did our ring announcing. I met David through Wrestle.
He did all the backstage interviews and stuff, even when we moved over to
Lake
the
Hiawatha.
weekly YouTube shows.
Yeah.
He was the guy that produced stuff. Yep.
And it was great because not only were we filming the event, but he would film it too, and do his own little videos. It was double the publicity. It was great. It was great, and I always loved him. And he did a great job that night with you on commentary, and of course, wasn't the Legend there too?
Yeah, Double A was on commentary as well.
Oh, that's right. Double A was on commentary. The Legend was just sitting there throwing his one-liners out there. That was his other.
He was there. I mean, he was sitting right in front of the. And then we did a little angle between me and David Adams, and everybody remembers. I shouted at him. I just had a. It was great. It was good stuff. I mean, David Adams is the guy who, even though I had storyline-wise my problems with him, I don't think the guy has a personal life. It seems like every day of the week, it really does. It seems like every day of the week, this guy is booked to do a wrestling show. We were just fortunate to have him week in and week out, for prime time, of course.
Right. Exactly. I don't understand this. But we were very fortunate to have him. I would have loved, I know he got injured a couple months after that, but I would have loved to continue to work with the guy. But it was a great cast. The referees, I know we had a couple different referees there that kept with us. They moved forward prime time. We had a battle royal, we had a huge battle royal in which we crowned a new heavyweight champion, which became Juan Francisco de Coronado. The Dragon made an appearance, assisting me in getting the victory over Juan Francisco de Coronado. We had a really, Eric Andretti took on Sean Donovan that night in a classic. Robbie took on Damian Gibbs. That was entertaining,
And speaking of Eric Andretti, and now again, I wasn't in tune, of course, being from Long Island and all that. I wasn't in tune at that point, 2016, with independent wrestling across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Now, of course, again, I'm going to mention another show, and I guess we'll get into this on a future episode, but Eric Andretti, talk about a guy who, there's no, what are you, killing a cat back there?
Oh, me?
Yeah, you're like a cat being murdered in the background.
No, man, I'm just driving. What?
So,
God.
Eric Andretti, I don't know if you remember, I forgot the event, but he had everybody, including the people backstage and the crowd, convinced that he tore his ACL, and then he came back and he won a match. This guy has acting skills that are second to none. Everybody was so worried about him. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was Over the Edge. That was in Livingston, New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, you know, I that's the type of stuff that I miss from wrestling nowadays. You don't find that. So, you know, when you mention Eric Andretti, I'll never forget the sell that he put on to fool every single person in that building. And to have that type of talent, I mean, now, you know, you get people trying to sell an injury and it's completely over the top, and you know that they're not really injured and it's part of the show. But this guy,
yeah, that was great.
You know, you know, already, you know, thinking back on when I went into the show and I was so disappointed in thinking that it was just going to be a hodgepodge of independent guys that have no affiliation with anything. And then, you know, after seeing a couple of shows and seeing the talent, especially a guy like Eric Andretti, I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
And what's funny is that in the crowd that night, as we discussed in episode 1, in the crowd that night were Izzy Reyes, Juan Vargas, Ken Reedy, Michelle D, Sergeant Cash. These were people that came to One Night Only, and 5 instrumental individuals who helped build Primetime and helped build the BBWF into something that is more than just One Night Only. And
yeah, it
kind of was the launching point of what we were really looking to do. And I was like, okay, well, can we do this? Can we put this together? And I remember, I knew I wasn't going to get Bday every week. I knew I wasn't going to get the Marvelous one. I mean, these are guys that had different paths and stuff. And but I remember talking to you, and you were as passionate about it like as I was. I was like, you know what? We have an opportunity here. This is something we should do. And it really picked up. And I was renting the ECPW building. I rented it a couple times before One Night Only, so I could, you know, mind you, I hadn't been in the ring since 2009. So, and that last time I was in the ring, I was injured because I took a couple bad spills working the Dragon. So I needed to figure out where things stood and what I was going to be capable of doing and what I wasn't. I mean, big difference between 30 and 40, you know. And I went to Gino and I said, what happens if I want this building every week, same day? And it just went from there, you know. So this show meant so much because this was the catapult basically for everything we were going to do in the future. And it was a homecoming, man. And it was good that, like, I get it, not everybody who was there knew, because we had a lot of people that came and that never seen us before. And there was a lot of people that were just like, what is it? They saw the atmosphere, like me and my brother and Bday and the Marvelous one in the ring in the beginning, and then you being there and like Bday on commentary, like, and even doing what they did for my birthday. I mean, that was very nice. Like, what they did that night was, I was so appreciative of it. You know, it meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot that I was spending it with the guys that, you know, we did. You know, the difference, I think, at the end of the day between the BBWF and a lot of promotions is that there are a lot of promotions are established. They work with talent. They work with already established talent. I get that, and I respect that completely. There's also a lot of schools that do shows, and I respect that more than anything else. I mean, I always loved Gino's shows and Kevin's shows and WrestlePro. I always had a great time. What we did, I don't compare it to what they did because we did it for different reasons and different meanings. We did it because we loved this, and we were such a tight group, and we still are, that we set out to do it our way, and we did it our way. And like, you know, for what we were and for what we came from, we did a lot. We did a whole lot, and we entertained in a big way, and that's something that'll always stick with me. I will always remember all the stuff we did.
Well, keep in mind, I mean, I touched upon this in my first go-around the other day. That was the difference between the BBWF and all these other independent organizations. Now, granted, very talented people, they're very talented in the ring, but the electricity that we had in the air at one night only was immeasurable. I mean, you don't get that. You know, independent wrestling shows, they'll put together a show week in, week out. People aren't invested in it, but every single thing in terms of the old guard and some of the storylines, people were invested in. You could see people sitting at the edge of their seat because they don't know what's going to happen next.
Right.
You know, independent shows, great. You know, you do backflips, you jump off the top rope. You know, a great talent by the name of Sean Donovan, who's got a great psychology for the industry.
Absolutely.
He calls them spot monkeys. You know,
absolutely.
He says, you know, and I agree with them because, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to buy tickets. If you want to go see an acrobatic act, you can just, you know, go to the circus and just watch people flip around and stuff. That's not what they did here. Here, people wanted to know what's going to happen in the main event. People wanted to know what's the next thing that's going to come out of the legend in Double A's mouth. What's David Adams going to do? Why is Mark Zim yelling at David Adams?
Right.
You know, and so, and you felt it. You know, people were sitting at the edge of their seats. Not only that, but you had spectators that wanted to get in on it. And like you mentioned, you were talking a lot about, you know, the big deal, America's big deal, Ken Reedy and Sergeant Cash and you know, a whole host of others that actually attended the event and ended up being a huge part of what was happening in it. I always joke, you know, you named the event one night only, but in hindsight, you should just put a question mark if you ever released the DVD at the end of it, because the answer was it wasn't one night only.
No, I know it's funny is that when you mentioned like Ken and Cash and all those guys, they were very, very new, and I think what happened with Primetime is that they were doing Primetime, they were doing IWF, they really weren't doing a whole lot of other shows around there, but I think what Primetime gave them was a comfort level, and it allowed them to kind of bring the characters out. Like, it really helped them enhance their personality, because that's one thing where I think we always strive. No matter the in-ring ability in what we had, because, you know, some of us were trained, some of us weren't, but everything else, we had the creativity, and we had the passion, and the gift of gab. And, you know, we were able to kind of really develop people. I mean, let's face it, we developed the whole Ken Reedy's, like, character as a heel. Like, you know, like, I always thought that was a great start for them, and I loved it. So, like, yeah, the BBWF really, one night only, really set the tone for all of that. I mean, and it was, I'll always remember that. That was such a great comeback show. I wish I can go back to that. And I'm glad we released this, you know, now that I'm turning 45 tomorrow, or today, whatever this gets released.
Early happy birthday. You know, we are taping it a day before, and again, one of the main reasons, but it's so topical. Anytime that first hint of that beautiful, humid June air in the Northeast, I always think about 2006, and I always think about 2016. No joke. Every single time that first hint of that humidity, those pit stains, I always think of those two shows. Those 2 years, 06 and 16. You know?
Yep, and it was a great time, man. And I'm glad we're actually still talking about it today. But, dude, I mean, these shows were fantastic. And honestly, as we wrap this up here, I want to thank you for sitting in on this, because, I mean, you and I were instrumental in both, in the build of the BBWF to what it was, and from 06 to 08, 09. And then you were very instrumental in the rebranding of it and the rebuilding of it as we brought it back. And I think, you know, as we go through more and more of these podcast episodes, you're going to hear more like the stories and putting it together as we interview different characters. So it brings me to my next questions. You know, is there anybody you want to get on this show, and anybody you want to really, other than Double A? Double A is a given, but who else would you love to see us interview for the podcast?
Well, off the top of my head, I definitely would love to get Ray Calitri out here.
Ray Calitri, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was part of one of my favorite early prime time when we were taping from somewhere else a decade earlier. Out of those skits, we were gonna tape like a few before that fizzled out. He's definitely going to be one of the top candidates. For some reason, he hops out. He you know, jumps up at me. Of course, Ken Reedy.
Oh, see now, what I was going to say
part
is
of the coalition.
a couple weeks ago when Dionette and Sergeant Cash started going at it on Twitter over who was going to be on the podcast first and everything else, I was actually just typing out a tweet right now in regards to saying I just can't believe that my co-host Mark Zim chose Ray Calitri as his first guest over Ken Reedy. I mean, not that I'm here to start any trouble amongst your faction here, but, you know, hey, I mean, poor Ken. I can't believe you did that to him.
Well, I have a bone to pick with my former protege, Ken Reedy. You know, he had a very popular show for the longest time called The Ken Reedy Show, and not once, even during our run together, had he invited me on to be on that show. So there's a little bitterness there.
You know what? I'm going to try something here. and I want to see if I can make it work. I'm going to put you on hold for a second, and let's see if we can make this happen, all right?
Okay.
All right, let's see if we can do this here, guys. I got Zim on hold, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a call. We're gonna make a call here and see what I can put together. Let's see if we can make a little bit of magic happen here on the Primetime Podcast. Let's see what happens.
Hey, reach Ken. Leave a message. Thanks.
Okay,
Have a great day.
I guess
Bye.
I can't. All right. All right, you there, Mr. Zim? Mr. Zim, are you there? Oh, did I lose Mark Zim? Is Mark Zim there? Let's see if I can. All right, Mark, are you there? All right, oh wait, no, hold on, that's right. There he is. You're there now. I didn't have you on the Bluetooth here. So right now,
I hear a voicemail.
Well, yeah, right now we're leaving. We're probably just talking randomly into Ken's voicemail here. But I was going to get him on the line and let's book him for the next show. But whatever, we'll make that happen on the next. On Twitter, I'll reach out to Ken, and I'm pretty sure he'll be our next guest. So let's do Dan Ram, Mark Zim, Ken Reedy. Let's put all this together and make Ken a guest.
All right, and of course, don't forget about Ray Calitri.
Now we'll get you Ray Calitri, not a problem. You go back to whatever it is your busy day, how's you doing? Sometimes I don't want to know what you're doing, but as always, it was great to talk to you.
You as well.
All right, buddy, take care.